Hey you guys, it's Britt. Today I'm here to react to a new video from Nikki Phillippi. I had quite a few thoughts, so if you're interested, please keep watching. All right, you guys, so after hearing 15 different ways to pronounce their name, I think Phillippi is the actual correct pronunciation. So I will do my best to pronounce it correctly. Now, as we know, she is uploading on YouTube again, but the comments and like to dislike are still off. So if you want to leave her a comment, you have to pay for her Patreon, which I think is complete and utter nonsense. You know, talk about creating an echo chamber. That's exhibit A of how to make yourself an echo chamber. Asking people to pay to leave you a comment. Just ridiculous, but we're going to attempt to get through this video. They evidently bought a house, and I'm going to do my best to not fall asleep during this video, so let's get right into it.
Guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to some crazy, exciting, did I say crazy? I feel like I should say it again, news. And if the news is not in the title, I can tell you right now, I'll just spoil it right at the top. We got a house. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Now, I mean, there we go. I pretty much just said it, but I wanted to hop on here today to tell you guys, first off, but also to explain and tell the story of how this unfolded, because it really is a, like I said, third time I'll say it, crazy story. And really, now this is kind of weird, I would call it a God story, because everything about this, we have felt like our steps have just been like, our path has been laid out for us. Now granted,
Listen here, let me go on a little rant about how she tries to tie everything to being God moments. I know a lot of people do this on YouTube and social media. Here's the thing. I've always looked at it like, yes, you know, there can be things in life that happen that are 1 in a million, and they just happen at the right time and the right place. And it's like, how did this even happen? I understand that things like that do happen, but buying a house is not one of them. Finding the home of your dreams is not one of them. You know, that has nothing to do with you being a religious person or a not religious person. It has everything to do with finding a home, finding a lender, making sure that you have the income and the debt to income ratio that the lender wants to see for your loan, and if and when needed, assistance from family, because as we know, her sponsors pulled out, you know, after they got rid of Bowser. And to put it all into a package with a pretty bow, if you want to tie it back to God, I don't think that God would do any favors for a couple that killed their dog. No reason. We've reviewed all of the old footage. I don't believe that he would want to step in and help people that did that just a few months ago. Just saying. But buying a home, finding a home, qualifying for a home, in my personal opinion, has nothing to do with whether or not you're a religious person. It has everything to do with making sure that you have the money and the credit to do so. Because if that had anything to do with it, then we wouldn't have homeless people on the streets, because, you know, there are so many homeless people in America that are really good-hearted people, and they are very religious. So if we're going to say that religion and believing in God equates to a home falling in your lap, then I don't think that we would have so many homeless people. I'm just saying. It all comes down to money, credit, cash flow, debt to income ratio, and finding a lender that will work with you.
I am one of those people that kind of feels like everything is, you know, a God thing, but this has been just extraordinary. I mean, I could say crazy again, but for the sake of not saying crazy again in this video, I'll just say extraordinary.
So is you putting your dog down for no reason a God thing too? Or you just pick and choose?
Now, before we hop into this video, and this has a little bit to do with this story, but not much, we'll get into it. I did want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody that has come onto my Patreon over the last couple of months, or the last month or so since I've been back online. And specifically, I want to thank everyone who came on this week to watch my video on the cancellation. And, you know, I really wanted to put it there because it's more intimate.
She wanted to put the video about the cancellation on her Patreon because her patrons are not going to give her as much flack as people on YouTube will, because those are people that are paying to access her. So those are people who look at what her and Dan did and they have already forgotten about it, or they didn't care from the get-go. If she put it on YouTube, she knew that she would be absolutely annihilated. So let me put the video about the cancellation behind my paywall, where I know that people are willing to pay me to leave me a comment. That is absolutely ridiculous. If you're paying for her Patreon, I would take a deep self-reflection on why you're willing to pay her a fee just to be able to leave her a comment. Nikki and Dan are not doing anything out of the ordinary that, in my opinion, are deserving of an additional fee every month to access them or their content. They are not special. In fact, I think that they have some deep character flaws that came to light when they made the decision about Bowser that they did, period.
Over there. And so really, you don't need to know the details. It's not something that like you have to see. You guys got the gist in the video that I put up when I first came back. But if you do want to support my family in our endeavors and our work, and you want—
No, we don't want to support your family and your endeavors and your work. I will react to every video that they put out for the next year if I have to, just to remind everyone of how terrible Nikki and Dan are. This is not a situation that can, in my opinion, just fall to the side because of the internet's short-term memory. I will keep it front and center. I told you guys that months ago, and I'm going to continue talking about it. Now, am I going to drag them through the mud? No, I'm not, but I will continue to bring up Bowser's name while they continue to attempt to regain popularity and get back to where they once were. It's not going to happen. And I think that most people look at them as if they don't exist. But I'll keep this conversation going. Try me.
Want to see the video and hear like the nitty-gritty details of what unfolded through the horribly nasty cancellation process, I will have my Patreon link.
Now, I have to say, I'm sure I've said this before, I'm positive that they got some really nasty messages. However, I know for a fact that most people were just voicing how disappointed and disgusted they were with what they did to Bowser. You know, were there probably some messages with profanities and maybe even some with threats? Most likely, because people are very passionate when it comes to animals online. As far as every single person just wanting to drag them through the mud, I, in my personal opinion, don't think that's what happened. But when that video came out, they weren't expecting the backlash, and they weren't expecting people to contact the Humane Society and make videos and react to it and get a conversation going. They weren't expecting that. They were expecting pity and sorrow. And when that's not what happened, it was, you know, called this cancellation, and they should be canceled. In my opinion, there are only a couple of people that I've come across on the internet that actually deserve to be canceled. And even if this is not a permanent cancellation, Nikki and Dan do not deserve to just jump up on their platform a couple months later, start getting sponsors, get the views and the admiration that they once had. This needs to simmer for a little while because they don't deserve what they had before the Bowser situation. That's just my opinion. That's one of millions of opinions out there. So I'm not saying that cancellation always has to be permanent, but sometimes when you build up influencers on a platform and they fuck up to this degree, they need to be held accountable. And it doesn't just need to be, oh, I'm going to take a 2-month break, come back and expect everyone to forget about it, and we're not going to talk about that anymore.
Down below, and I just wanted to say thank you again. And that has a little bit to do with this story, kind of. We'll circle back. So starting with my parents' story, really, because that is part of what is so incredible about this story. My parents actually moved up here to North Idaho at the end of last year, like fallish. And when it came up, they found a rental, which was already a miracle in and of itself, because if you guys didn't know this, Northern Idaho, the real estate market is crazy. And specifically this town is like the second craziest real estate market in the US. So even finding a rental is just kind of bananas at this point, honestly.
Real estate market is crazy everywhere right now. I've never been to Idaho. I don't know if it's as picture perfect as she makes it seem, but real estate market is crazy everywhere right now.
But they found one and they were there for a couple of months, and when they started looking at houses, their realtor, who he's awesome, but when they got up here, one of the things that he said was like, okay, you guys need to be prepared, because I have clients that have been putting offers on houses and trying to get into a home for over a year and they're not in a place. And my parents were like, okay, you know, like, sounds good. So they started touring houses and they found a home that they really loved, and they put an offer in. It's this home. There were 35 offers and theirs was accepted. So not only were there like a bajillion offers, but it was the first and only house that they put an offer on. So just that, like, our realtor was like, what? Like, in awe. And even if that was the end of the story, it's already become like a talked about thing amongst our friends. Like, can you believe that they got the first house they put a bid on with 35 other people? Actual insanity. So that would have been crazy enough. We'll keep going. So as you guys know, Dan and I had visited up here in like March-ish, and we were pretty sure we were going to want to move here based off of what we had heard, what we had seen online. You know, we had watched like all of the videos about the area, and we were like, yeah, man, I really think we want to move here. And there were a lot of reasons. The beauty, my family has always wanted to be in the mountains, like literally my whole life since I was a kid. And then also the level of freedom that exists within Idaho.
I mean, the mountains were in Tennessee too when they were living in Nashville. So this whole move to Idaho has everything to do with them being less known. Nashville is hugely developed. It's very, very busy and bustling right now. You know, Nashville is a hot spot for people to live. So their move to Idaho, in my opinion, has a lot to do with, yes, being closer to her parents, but secondly, being in a smaller town that has less activity, and they can most likely go out and not be recognized as quickly as they were in Nashville.
Is really amazing, and I actually talked about that in my Patreon video at one point. I'm so grateful to be here. Anyways, so we came and we visited in March, and we loved it. We were like, okay, we're gonna move in the next couple months. And then obviously fast forward to everything that happened with Bowser, things got sped along a lot faster because of the bomb that exploded.
AKA, we needed to get the hell out of Nashville because we could no longer go out in public and run errands. Like, you know, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that if they saw Nikki and Dan in the grocery store or in a restaurant or somewhere, they would not hesitate to tell them exactly how they feel. Like, these are people who have over 1 million eyes on their channel. That video that they did on Bowser got a ton of attention. So this is not something that could just fly under the radar and continue on with day-to-day business. So yeah, of course it got sped along because you no longer could live in the city that you were residing in.
And what it did to our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. Oh my gosh, a baby deer just came running by. That's incredible. Mountain life. So we ended up moving a lot faster. And like I said, I went into detail with this over on my Patreon. But you can get the gist. Things got crazy. We needed to get out fast. And we ended up getting out here a lot sooner than possible, moving into my parents' basement because praise God, they have like a massive finished basement. So we have been able to live down there for the last few months. I think we're going on like 4 months now.
God has nothing to do with her parents having a basement that's finished. They just so happen to have a house with some extra space. This is what I'm talking about, this constant like manifestation, and everything is placed into my lap because I'm a believer in God. You know, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like when certain people put themselves on a pedestal as if they got what they got because they are religious. I don't like it.
So we're very grateful for our time that we have been spending here with them in the basement, and we're going to be here for a little longer. We'll get to that. So Dan and I get here in Logie, and the first day of, like, you know, we flew here, got in at night, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and we walk outside to my parents' beautiful backyard. You guys have seen it. It's lovely. And we walk out, and Dan looks over to the right, and he points and goes, "Why can't we just live there?" At the neighbor's house, like the next door neighbor's house. And I was like, Dan, you guys already know where this is going, but I was like, Dan, I know you love my parents. I love them too, but we don't need to live right next door to them. And he goes, I know, but that would be so cool. And it would make things so easy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So let me just say,
I mean, the one thing that I will say I agree with her on is, y'all know I'm very, very close with my dad. I would absolutely live next door to my dad or have him in our home. Like, obviously, if we have more space, you know, that's always been something that has been up for discussion, is having a setup where he could live with us, you know. Obviously not right now. It would, you know, be in the next couple of years, or next, I would say put it in the 5-year plan. But either way, so I totally get that, but also that house at the time wasn't on the market. So why can't we just buy that house? It's because someone owns it, dummy.
What is really weird about him doing that, besides just like, why did he do that? About a couple of months earlier, shortly after my parents had moved in, the next door neighbor, she's an older woman that lives by herself, had come to my dad, and they had talked, just like meeting each other outside. And he had said that we were planning on moving up here and we were going to be looking for a place to live. And she said to him, hey, I want to sell my house to your daughter. Now, he did not tell us that. And I was about to say we did not believe it, but we didn't even know it at this point, because I think he didn't believe it. And it just seemed kind of like, you know, like a flippant conversation. And, you know, like I said, she's older, so we didn't know like what she was going to really want to do with her life, or they didn't know. So they never said anything to us. So when Dan walked outside and said that, it was really, really weird. So one day I was at Bible study and I came home at night. It's a nighttime thing. You didn't need to know that, but I came home that night and I walk in the room and my mom goes, oh my goodness, Nikki, the neighbor just came over and she wants to sell you her house. And I was like, what? Now keep in mind, pretty much like a lot of people that live around here, including many of my friends that I've made, have really been struggling to.
Who'd want to be friends with her? Either way, the whole thing with this lady wanting to sell her house, I don't know how this conversation came up, but typically a neighbor is not just going to go to another neighbor and in a casual conversation be like, I want to sell my house to your son or your daughter. That is way too random for it to not have been brought up somehow previously. Either, you know, allegedly Nikki's parents told this older neighbor, oh, my daughter and her husband are living in our basement. It had to have been mentioned at some point in time. That's not just going to be a completely random offer that someone gives out. Let's be real.
Find housing. I mean, and it makes sense because, like I said, the market here is so insane. And so, like, my jaw practically hit the floor when she said that. And then we found out that she had mentioned it to my dad a few months earlier. But even in that moment, it was like, my heart started racing. I'm like, how crazy is that? Because Dan had walked outside that day and said that. Now, even still, I was like, okay, yeah, we'll see. I'll believe it when it happens. All right. Basically one thing unfolded to the next. Our real estate agents ended up talking to each other. We ended up, going over to the house and walking through. Now I have to tell you one other crazy thing, since I'm in the spirit of like woo woo be wah and telling you, and this is just the truth, like Dan pointing over and going like, why can't we live there? Here's another thing, just for the spirit of like, we're friends and I'm already telling all the woo woo be wah stories. I told Dan earlier in the year.
She's not your friend. These influencers that constantly say, oh, you're my friend, you're my friend. She has no clue who she's talking to on the other side of that lens. She might know a handful of her subscribers, but to say, oh, you're my friend, that's just another manipulation tactic in order to make people feel close to her. Then they'll be interested, then they'll feel sorry, then they'll go to her Patreon. It's all manipulation 101.
Year when we thought we were going to be moving to Idaho and maybe like end of summer, fall-ish time, and I was like, hey, this is gonna be our first time really living in like more snow, and I'm already keeping a list of movies I want to watch. And the movie that I kept telling him over and over was that I'm so excited to watch Sound of Music with Logan. And that is because I now know Logan well enough, at least at this phase in his life, to know what he'll like. And I really think he's gonna love it because he loves seeing little kids on camera. He loves music. Like, guys, literally this kid walks around singing all day. And I just think that the movie's gonna rock his world. And so I've been bringing it up to Dan like an obnoxious amount because I'm as weird in real life as I seem online. So I'm always like, oh my gosh, the Sound of Music, can't wait for winter. Anyways, we walk into her house the first day we're touring and, just checking it out. Like, okay, we do want to live here, right? And we walk into her bedroom, and at the very top of her like next to her bedside table is a collector's edition of The Sound of Music. And I go, oh, and I point to it and look at Dan. And of course, no one else knew this, but Dan was like he knew because I've been obnoxiously bringing it up. So really random.
Okay, all of these coincidences, Sound of Music is a very popular movie, especially with older people, younger people too, but especially that generation, like my parents' generation. It's a very popular movie. Let's not act like it's some sort of movie that nobody knows of and this lady had it in her house. Sound of Music it's like someone owning the Wizard of Oz. Come on.
So many crazy things that have just like unfolded in this whole situation. So the whole time this was going, we didn't think that this was actually going to happen, which is part of the reason why we didn't say anything. So in my day in my life videos that I keep looking over there, but the camera's not there. The camera's there. The camera is there. You guys can see when we're in the backyard in my parents' garden, you can see over the fence, there's another home right there, like the wall of the home. That's going to be our home. So that is crazy. Now, I have to say, as you guys know, things have been really rough for us and we're rebuilding our life.
Yes, it's been rough for you guys. It has been. I'm sure you've received some really nasty things. She also previously tried to say that people were threatening her child. I don't believe that. I think that was just her spreading the sorrow further to say that people were threatening her child. 99.9% of people are angry with Nikki and Dan. They're not going to bring the kid into it. Like, let's be real. But yeah, things were rough. Y'all made a horrible decision. People put two and two together and weren't happy with it. There were so many other ways that the Bowser story could have played out. They didn't have to put out that video. It didn't have to be Nikki looking so, casually drinking her coffee. You guys saw the body language expert reacted to their video. Across the board, everybody had the same feeling after watching it, and it was disgust and anger once you got done watching that video for good reason. So yes, it was rough, but now what I feel like she's trying to do is not only come back to YouTube relying on the internet's short-term memory of, people being bad online, but secondly, it's this sprinkling in this sorrow in order to make those that are on the fence feel bad for her. Like, oh, well, you know, God, she's still talking about how rough it was. Maybe it really was rough. So, you know, I'll check her out on Patreon, or I'll watch her videos on YouTube again. It is trying to sway those that are on the fence. And I cannot stand when influencers manipulate their audience using emotions. I think it's completely foul and disgusting. And I'm not saying that people cannot, you know, come to their platform and share emotional stories and things like this, but when the emotion is being used to regain what you once had, it's the convenience factor that grosses me out.
The only reason we got this house is because my parents were able to and willing to help us out a lot. So this was a joint effort. This would not have happened.
Okay, so that's the answer to everything. Her parents put a lot of money. Allegedly, her parents gave them a lump sum to put down on this house because since they have no cash flow, sponsors pulled out, the YouTube, you know, went down the drain there for a little while. In order to get qualified for a loan with a lender, you're going to have some sort of cash flow, low debt to income number, and some money to put down. So obviously, this wouldn't have happened without her parents. Either way, you know, there's no shame in asking family for help, but it really also goes to show how her parents, you know, don't really give a damn about their daughter being held accountable, and maybe that's just something that parents do. Either way, that's the answer to the question. How did they get a house? Parents helped them.
On our own, and if I already didn't have enough things to be eternally grateful to my parents for, they just added to that list. So I did want to say that. Oh, baby and daddy just rode by on a bike. He's got him on a bike ride while I'm filming. Anyways, I did want to say that because, you know, I have let you guys in a little bit and then a lot over on Patreon as to how difficult the last few months have been. Not only, like I said, mentally, emotionally, physically, but also financially. And so, yeah, my parents.
So I'm going to remind you how hard it has been financially. Any of you that are out there on the fence, maybe come check me out on Patreon. You'll get a little bit more information, a little bit more tea, and you'll also be helping my family because we've been going through such a hard time because we ended up killing our dog for no reason at all.
Helped us get this house, and we also obviously sold a home in Nashville. That was our first home that we've ever owned, and so that was obviously helpful as well. But there's that, and then the other thing you guys should know is that the home is a fixer-upper, I guess you would call it. It's totally fine to live in, but we're going to fix up things. We're going to do it all ourselves. You guys already know that Dan is the most handy person ever. I don't even like the word handy because I feel like handy is like a shallow, jokey term for his brilliance. Dan can literally build and fix anything, and so we're going to be documenting that whole process. Dan made a joke, and I wonder if they ever thought that.
So they're obviously going to make a whole series about fixing up this house, and that will be content for them. I don't think that the views will be what they expect them to be because people don't care anymore. You lost half your you lost half of your subscribers' attention when you did what you did to Bowser.
Their names would be turned into a verb. But Dan was like, yeah, we're gonna Chip and Joanna Gaines this house. So that's what we're doing. Now you guys already know we're in a lovely neighborhood. Like, my goodness, it didn't even occur to me until our real estate agent, when we were closing on the house the other day, said to us, he goes, oh, you wanna know, I think one of my favorite things about that neighborhood are the trees, because this neighborhood was built in the 90s, and so all of the trees have had time, I mean, you can see them kind of in the corner, to mature.
Okay, we're gonna scrub the rest of this. There's only 5 minutes left, but this is boring.
Praying and hoping for another pregnancy baby this year. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for my parents. I literally can't believe God just dropped this in our lap. Like, everyone we've told this story to, they're literally like, I'm sorry, what? Like,
no, God didn't drop anything in your lap, Nikki. What happened was, it just so happened that your parents dropped the line to the neighbor. She's in a position where she's, ready to sell her house for whatever reason. She decided to sell it to you guys. You got a lot of help from your parents in order to qualify, and you got the house. It has nothing to do with anything being dropped in your lap. Stop using this manipulation to make other people think that if they do what you're doing, that they'll have a house dropped in their lap too, because it's bullshit, lies, and manipulation. Goodbye, Nikki. Whatever. I have no interest in listening to her just talk her BS. So that's the update with them buying a house. And, you know, I apologize if I'm a little bit more snippy in this video, but it does upset me to hear people, you know, say, oh, well, I've been living my life this way and look what happened. God dropped a house in my lap. I cannot stand that. It just feels gross to me. So Nikki and Dan, you know, their cancellation in my mind is still going on. If other people want to forgive them and pay them on Patreon for, you know, nonsense, that's their journey. But like I said a while ago, I will continue to talk about them sporadically just to make sure that everybody remembers, and anyone who is new to YouTube knows what they did to their dog. And I'll keep the conversation going if nobody else wants to. It's all good. So for now, if you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.